Good morning, Turks and Caicos. Welcome to First Edition. We apologize for being slightly late, but my guest has been pulled in all directions, and we'll tell you about it later. But energy and utilities play a critical role in one of the biggest issues facing the Turks and Caicos Islands: the cost, reliability, sustainability, and future of energy. Our guest brings a whole lot of experience, management, and regional energy expertise to the discussion, including experience in renewable energy, transmission systems, and post-hurricane grid recovery. So, please help me welcome our Energy and Utilities Commissioner, Mr. Delano Arthur. Mr. Arthur, good morning. Thank you for joining me.
Good morning, Turks and Caicos, and thank you for having me.
Yeah, now I understand you just got back from Hawaii.
Yes.
So might a bit of jet lag and all might be included in this morning.
Most definitely.
Let's start there. Tell us a bit about that.
Oh, Hawaii was an awesome experience. It's essentially myself along with three other folks, two persons from Fortis TCI, along with my permanent secretary, along with environmental activist, Miss Ocean White. We attended the Blue Planet Alliance cohort. And what the Blue Planet Alliance cohort helps to do is they introduce countries and small island nations to individuals who are like-minded on the same path and on the same journey, even though we may be at different places, and trying to get them to reach 100% renewable energy by the year 2040. And what they do essentially do is, because Hawaii is practically the most advanced small island, not really so nation, but small island state of the U.S., or a small island nation in less of a word. They have essentially, in some islands, they have already reached 80–90% of renewable energy of their total output. So for instance, on the small island of Kauai, which has about a similar population to that of the Turks and Caicos Islands, they have about 80,000 residents on Kauai, and they can run on 100% renewable energy for about 5 hours a day. So when you look at the total output for renewable energy is around 80%. So we gathered there so that we can have lessons learned, so that we can see where everyone else is, and so that we can plot a roadmap on how we can get to 100% renewable energy by the year 2040.
That sounds awesome.
It is. It's a hard task. One of the things that we looked at is, what does it take, right? What is your roadmap? And we realize and we understand that there is some financial roadmaps. There is some political will. There has to be a political will to get there. There's also some technological issues that we have to overcome. And we understand, and what we try to do is, what does it take for all of us to get there? Understanding that no one man is an island. And in order for us to do that, we have to be in succinct, we have to be on one accord, and we have to be in unity.
Yeah. Listeners, viewers, if you're just joining us, we have Mr. Delano Arthur, our Energy and Utilities Commissioner, talking to us. You're not going to want to miss this, because he's going to tell us about fuel costs and how we can lower our light bills and all the rest of it, all that good stuff we want to hear. But Mr. Arthur, for the average listener and viewer watching and listening to you right now, how would you describe the current state of energy and utilities in the TCI?
The current state of energy and utilities in the TCI, I would say, is in a transition. And the reason why I say that we're in a transition is because we understand that we are currently at the whims of the energy market. And it's not a place that any country wants to be at. And I could use some other words, but I don't want to. So I just use the words transition to understand, and so that our viewers can know that there is hope at the end of the tunnel, as long as we as ourselves have the willpower to get through the transition. There are a lot of challenges in the energy market right now, because we all know what's going on in the geopolitical arena with the U.S. war in Iran, and that has essentially sent the energy prices through the roof. I'll give you an example. Before the conflict, energy prices, we use Brent crude as the main factor in terms of what energy cost is. Before the war, Brent crude was at about an average of between $58 to $64 per barrel. I just checked it last night. Last night it was at 110. At some times in this conflict, it has reached up to about 120, $125 per barrel. And the goal as a nation, the goal as when we look at energy and energy in our country, is to reduce our dependency on the market. And how do we reduce our dependency on the market? It can come in a number of ways, but the major two ways that we reduce our dependency on the market is by, one, creating an energy hedge. And that energy hedge can be in the form of a fuel hedge or a renewable energy hedge. And the transition that I hope that we're on path to, and I believe that we are, is to reduce our dependency on the energy market and its geopolitical events that can sometimes affect the market through renewable energy, the investment in renewable energy in our country.
So you mentioned that, well, you described the current state as in a transition phase, and you mentioned renewable energy. We're going to get to that later. But would you say that the TCI energy sector is sustainable in its current form?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Why not?
We're burning 99% of the energy resource that we burn is diesel. Diesel is the most expensive fuel to burn on the market. It's also the most available, and it's at no fault of anyone. So I don't want to infer that I'm castigating or inferring that anyone is doing something that is untoward.
Yeah.
That is just 9 out of every 10 small island nation in our position burn diesel. But again, it is the most expensive natural resource, or resource, not natural resource. It is the most expensive resource to burn. So we would like to see those moving from diesel to another form of fuel burning source. The state that the Turks and Caicos is in, we are in a prime position to transition to a next level. So yes, whereas it's not in a very good state, there are pathways for us to move, transition, and so that we can move to addition through other avenues.
So what would you say are the biggest structural weaknesses in the system?
That's a good question. In terms of structural weaknesses, I think where the Turks and Caicos is right now, one of our biggest challenges is that we have laws and regulations that are based on agreements from the 1980s. So whereas we have had some iterations in our legislation, the iterations are still based or underpinned on agreements that have been from 1986, quite frankly, right? So when you look at the biggest structural challenge, and I like to call my challenges opportunities, because even though they are a challenge today, it's an opportunity for us to do better. It's an opportunity for us to overcome. So let me just say to our viewers some of the things that we have been doing and that we're doing as an Energy and Utilities Department to help us overcome those challenges and to accept those opportunities. One of the things that we're doing, or that we've begun to do, is to create policy on a multi-sector utilities, which means oil and gas, water, and electricity. What are the international industry best practice regulations to regulate these entities, with the understanding that this is where we are now, 1986, and this is where we want to be in the future, moving towards best practice. Another thing that our department is doing, and again, with consultation with everyone, we have consulted on these avenues with Pelican Energy, we've consulted with the water company, we've consulted with the oil and gas industries, to ensure that the regulations and the legislation and the policies that we set are industry best practices. We are not there yet, and there are many things that we can do better on, and we seek to do better on. Another avenue is, again, I know we'll get there, but you will hear the theme throughout this conversation, renewable energy legislation. This is something that is essentially long overdue. There is not a clear path and clear regulation on those who want to introduce and those who want to explore renewable energy in the country. So we want to ensure that there is a clear and equal playing field for everyone who wishes to install and operate off renewable energy. Some may say, well, the utility don't want me to do this, or I'm trying to install a system and you don't want me to install the system. There are some nuances to that. There in renewable energy, it can't just be a free-for-all. There has to be regulations that adhere quality, the size of your system, with the understanding that you can only install what you're using, and there are certain limits and thresholds where someone may want to say, I want to install a 2 megawatt system. And we could very well say, no, a 2 megawatt system is too large because of our grid, because we have to protect the island grid. We have to ensure that, again, there's an equal and fair playing field for all.
I think that's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you so much for that. But many people say, Commissioner, that electricity is just simply too expensive. That's the comment. So explain to the public in practical terms why electricity costs are so high in small island states like ours.
I agree with them.
That's coming from the Energy and Utility Commissioner.
The energy prices in the Turks and Caicos Islands are too high. And me personally, and again, I want to make sure that everyone understands my role. And my role is that of an independent role. Even though I work for government, I'm hired by government, my role is not to acquiesce to government in terms of what their thoughts and terms are. And I've said it time and time again.
And you're also a consumer.
I am, right? And if there are things that are being put in place that is advantageous to one or the other, I have to step in because of my role to say that this is not industry best practice. I've been in situations where I've had to tell the utility companies, this is not something that I can agree on because it is too favorable to your institution. And likewise, I've been in situations, not so very good ones, where I've had to say to policymakers, you cannot do this because if you do, it affects the utility. So therefore, again, the theme is to create a fair and equal playing field. And how do we do that? We do that by regulations, we do that by legislation, we do that by policy setting to ensure that no one is left behind. Now, going back to your question on the high cost of energy, I think that the number one thing at this particular point in time that we can do as we move through this transition to help with the energy costs is efficiency. And how do we help with energy efficiency? Making sure that our AC units are not running when they're not supposed to be or when no one is home. We can set them to optimal temperatures. Ensuring that all of your incandescent light bulbs are changed out to LED light bulbs. Ensuring that when you're not using a room, that the light is off. I have this thing with my kids, right? Where I say to them, if I go in a room and I meet a light or a fan on, it's $5.
Ooh.
Yes. And
steep.
Yes, it is. But guess what? The first week, they were up to like about $50.
Ooh.
The second week, they're at $25. And the third week, when they see me walking in a particular direction, they're running to make sure that the light is off. So they're training themselves, and we're training everyone, and we're training them to make sure that, hey, this has a cost. Yeah. So we have a role in what we should do. Yes, policymakers have a role. Yes, the Energy and Utilities Department has a role. Yes, Pelican Energy has a role. But we ourselves have a role to play as well.
You know, just listening to you for the few minutes you've been here with me, I don't think any of us envy your chair.
It's not a good position to be in. There is a common theme among regulators. And the common theme among regulators is that when you know that you've made a good decision is when everyone is pissed at you. You've made it a good decision when the energy company is mad, when the consumers is mad, and when the government is mad.
Ooh.
Because as regulators, we try to strike that balance where no one company or no one person or no one entity is at a greater
Yes.
advantage than the other.
That's-
So it's not an envious rule.
And we thank you.
Yeah.
So, to what extent would you say that residents are actually paying for imported fuel volatility every month? Or are we?
We are. The volatility is based, again, on the number one expensive fuel resource, and that is diesel energy. And diesel energy, or any type of fuel energy, oil energy, LNG energy that we burn, becomes at the volatility of the market. Mm-hmm. And again, we in this era, through the transition, we have to set ourselves apart or away from that volatility to try to remove ourselves from the whims of the oil market. Because today, I'll give you an example, and I want our viewers to understand this, and I also want those that are in key positions to also understand this as well. During the beginning stages of the Ukraine-Russia war,
Right.
back in 2022, before the war started, Turks and Caicos Islanders essentially paid, and I'm looking at all-inclusive price for their energy cost per kilowatt hour at around 35 to 40 cents per kilowatt hour.
Okay.
At the peak of that conflict, Turks and Caicos Islanders paid close to 50 cents per kilowatt hour, which is a lot. Again, making us one of the highest in the region. That was during the Ukraine and Russia conflict in 2022. And just to give you an example of where that is in terms of the oil prices, Brent crude oil prices. Before the conflict, Brent crude prices were at about $58 per kilowatt. Where we at now?
Yeah.
Where we were before
Yeah.
the beginning of the U.S.-Ukraine conflict. And at the peak of the conflict, Russia-Ukraine, the Brent crude prices was at about $120, $130 per barrel. Remember I talked about that?
Right, yes.
So it is no doubt that we will experience higher energy prices. So I'm warning the public now. It is now time to begin to use the energy efficiency resources at your measure. Those that have within your ability, within your capacity to use less of energy, use less of fuel, please do so, because we have begun to see those fuels at the pump. I drove up to the pump the other day, and there are departments that keep track of the costs. In some instances, we can see fuel costs for our vehicles at about $6.80.
Yeah.
It is high.
Yeah.
So
And some places it's even higher than that.
Right. We want to see more electric vehicles on the road. We want to see more renewable sources. We want to see that push towards electrification. And electrification is ensuring that because the energy that you burn in your home, if you use that for your car, is much cost effective.
Yeah.
So we want to see more push towards electric vehicles. We want to see a greater push of energy efficiency that will help us to, again, not be so dependent on the market. We cannot, as a nation, a small island nation, be dependent on the market. I'm going to spit out a lot of facts, so please forgive me. On April 22nd, 2016, the United Kingdom signed the Paris Accord. And the Paris Accord says that essentially we, as the United Kingdom and our British overseas territory, we wish to see a reduction in carbon emissions over all of our territories.
Right.
And because we want to see the reduction in our carbon emissions over all of our territories, because we want to get to -2 degrees Celsius in terms of the rate at which the temperature of our climate and our environment is growing. We want to sign on this agreement, and when we sign onto this agreement, we are going to put certain things in place for decarbonization, for renewable energy, to protect the environment, to protect the deforestation, right? And we have an obligation as a British overseas territory to be able to ensure that we fulfill the agreements in the Paris Climate Accord. And I would say, as a country, we all have not done our part, and we all need to do better.
Yeah, that's so important. But let's move on. Mr. Arthur, is there a misconception that among the public that utility companies alone determine electricity prices? Is that true?
No, no. Utility companies are governed, in this current dispensation, they're governed by an agreement, again, from 1986. And based on that agreement, and I try not to get too technical, but essentially, a lot of people say, well, the company determines how much they're going to mark up their cost by. And that is not necessarily the price. It's not like a regular conglomerate or business where you can say, I buy commodities for X and I can decide if I want to put a 50% markup or a 40% markup on this cost, and I'm going to sell it for whatever that markup is. No. Utilities are governed by agreements, which essentially says that it's what we call a cost plus agreement. Whatever your costs are, you are essentially guaranteed to make a percentage, and that percentage is agreed on by the regulator and the regulated, and then whatever that cost is, depending on their investments, depending on the cost of fuel. Now, I invite the CEO, Mr. Devin Cox, from from Pelican Energy, to come on this show and to ensure that his consumers and their consumers understand their cost of energy, because it's their consumers and they need to be the ones out front there. Right. So I encourage them that they should really be in front of the public to advise what are the components of your electricity bill. Yes. The regular consumer really doesn't know what are the components of your electricity bill. There are two parts. What are those two parts make up? There's base energy costs and there's your fuel consumption. They need to be out front there advising the public, letting them know where we are. And it's not just in sending an email blast saying this is what's going to happen. No, there has to be a public communication campaign pushing energy efficiency, making sure you understand your components, making sure you understand your utility bill, so that persons, the more they understand, the better they can plan.
Yeah. And that face-to-face communication is so important. It also builds trust. When I can look at you and watch that expression and say, okay, now Mr. Arthur is, not telling me the whole story here.
Yes, right. So Devin, if you're listening, we hope to see you here.
All right. Now, how much of our energy challenge, if any, would you say is geographic, meaning scattered islands, small populations, logistics, undersea distribution?
You coming with the questions today. Oh my goodness.
I knew you were coming. I knew you were coming.
I would say a large portion of it, right? And even though I would say a large portion of it, I would venture to say those things that you talk about, geographical location, transportation, undersea cables, we have 40 islands and keys spread across this archipelagic nation. So even though a lot of the things that you talked about are our challenges, they do not, because there are opportunities over the hill with the transition. We know what those opportunities are. So yes, not having a deep water seaport is an increased cost for energy, because all of our fuel that we use, 99.9% is imported. Yes, we have a distributed archipelagic island, so therefore we need to have an undersea cable that is overutilized between Providenciales and Middle and North Caicos. Yes, and Middle and North Caicos, everyone knows that that's my home. Yes, our challenges are those various things that we talk about, but but we can overcome them through the energy transition.
Yeah. You answered this, I think, several times already this morning, but just for clarity, how exposed is the TCI to disruptions in global oil supply chains?
Let me answer that by saying 99.9% of the energy that we burn
That's a lot.
comes from outside. We do not, we have not done a good job in the energy transition. We have not done a good job. And there is a balance, right? And the balance is ensuring that those that have are not able to surpass those that do not have, because those that have can invest in renewable energy. And that's why we talk about a balance, right? So all of our fossil fuel is, we don't have any energy wells here. We don't have, well, the energy well that we have is the sun. But for some reason, we decide not to use it fully, right? So we want to see there not a major disparity, but we want to start to see an equal disparity of the fossil fuels that we bring in equal to those that we use because of our natural resources here, which is sun and wind. And I know wind can sometimes be a topic that is not favorable because it's an unsightly resource. But we need to begin to start to have those conversations, because everything that we do, costs are increasing and they will continue to increase. We have to remove ourselves away from the geopolitical dependency that happens every other year. And slight secret, this is not the last one. There are going to be more. And we know this because our Bible tells us this. There are going to be wars and rumors of wars. There are going to be challenges all across this world. So we have to, as a nation, begin to prepare ourselves.
If you're just joining us, listeners, viewers, we have Mr. Delano Arthur, Energy and Utilities Commissioner here in the TCI on with us, and we're so grateful. He's a very busy man. He's taken time out to be here with us. But Mr. Arthur, I think you just answered my next question, but I'd like you to look into your crystal ball. What are your projections for the next 3 to 5 years in terms of fuel price?
I think, well, my crystal ball would probably fail me because, and the reason why I say that is because, like, we are so dependent, the energy prices that we are on now today is so dependent on what's going on around the world. But if I had a crystal ball that I can have direct influence on, let me tell you what that crystal ball would say. That crystal ball will essentially say where we started. We want to be an island of sun, sand, and sea where tourists can come and play, and our energy is derived by the year 2040, and I'm going a little bit further, I know that I am, by 100% renewable energy sources, if not completely, at least by some parts of the day where we can say, you know what, we're not going to burn fossil fuel, where our energy resources are more used based on what is on the ground by what is imported. Now, I think I know where you want to go, and you want to go in terms of costs, right? So energy costs are rising. Energy costs will continue to rise as long as there is geopolitical conflict in the U.S. and between the U.S. and Iran. They will, at some point in time, presumably plateau, meaning they will level off, hopefully. And then when the conflict starts to subside, when there is peace in specific areas, then you will begin to see those costs start to come down. And I heard someone say that energy and fuel costs go up like a skyrocket, but they come down like a feather. So at some point in time, we would begin to see those costs come down. But again, for the foreseeable future, for the next 3 to 5 months, I think I would be doing my role, I would be doing myself a disservice if I do not at least notify the public on what is coming.
Yeah.
And there are higher energy costs coming, and we have to be ready for them.
Yeah. You just dashed all my hopes, because my next question was going to be if there's realistic hope that electricity costs will decrease in the near future.
I don't think it's right away, because again, we have some things in place that we need to get to, right? And those that are listening, they know what they are, right? And when we get to those things that need to be put in place, and again, it's no secret, we're at the whims of the market.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's the worst market to be dependent upon, because it is never stable. It is never stable.
Yeah. You've been mentioning this all morning, and I said we'd get to it, but I'm technically challenged.
Right.
So we keep hearing terms like renewable energy, solar transition, and net zero. What do those terms actually mean for the average Turks and Caicos Islander?
What does it mean? It means decarbonization. It means energy affordability. It means energy sustainability. It means energy reliability. And I know some folks will forget 3 and only focus on the affordability, right? But as a part of the decarbonization, as a part of the reforestation, not deforestation, as a part of ensuring that we reach net zero by a specific year, we are essentially doing our part to ensure that this Turks and Caicos Islands, these islands that we grow to live and love, are essentially left in a better position for our children and our children's children,
Yeah.
because we want to reduce carbon emissions. We want to ensure that the energy that we burn is clean, that it is based off of the God-given natural resources. Some may venture to say that fossil fuels are natural resources, but I don't see it as that, and most of the world doesn't as well. But we want to ensure that renewable energy, that is wind and sun, at the forefront of our energy mix. We want to ensure that it is available and have access to all. And I want to get into some parts of the renewable energy and the renewable energy bill, because I think that dictates the way we move and see our future. So the renewable energy bill has several components, right? And we talk about those that have the ability to invest in renewable energy, because it is expensive right now. It's getting cheaper. Panels and battery systems are getting cheaper. But what the renewable energy does is, again, it creates an equal playing field, not for one person, not for one energy company, but for everyone to invest in their renewable energy future. And what it does is, those that do not have the ability to do so, we have what we call community solar, where the government will invest in community solar for the underprivileged mom, for the underprivileged father, for that pensioner, for that person who may be sick, who may fall on hard times, who does not have the ability to afford a higher cost or higher rate of energy, to be able to tap into that community solar to be able to provide energy and energy resources for their home. So these are the things where I say we got to get over the hump towards the energy transition, that we all can benefit in the decarbonization, affordability, reduce emissions for our country.
Yeah. And is the Renewable Energy Act in effect?
It is not in effect, but we're essentially going through the process, and I hope that we'll get there very soon.
All right. Now you mentioned earlier that you're the individual who represents or makes sure that the government, the utility company, and the consumer are all treated fairly.
Yes.
So, should government then, Mr. Arthur, offer more incentives for solar installation and energy efficient homes?
Absolutely.
He says that with straight face.
Absolutely. I believe that, and incentive comes in many forms, right? Incentives can come in the form of direct investments into renewable energy. With the Renewable Energy Act, we talked about government offering direct incentives to community solar. Incentives can come in the form of reduced taxes on, well, solar panels have a reduced tax, but it's also, that's not the only part of your renewable energy system. There is the wires, the batteries, the racking system, the balance of plant that does not attract the lower cost. So that's also an incentive. They can also provide direct incentives to say that, and the government did this in 2022 at the height of the Ukraine crisis, where they capped fuel prices at a specific amount. So yeah, the point I want to make is not that the government is or is not doing something. The point I want to make is that it is everyone's role, not just the government, not just the consumer, but everyone, from the utility company to the government to the individual homeowner that is burning energy, that leaves their room and the fan is on, that leaves their room and the light is on, or the TV is on all day, or the AC is on all day when you leave. Everyone has a role and responsibility. We oftentimes say that the government should do this and the government should do that, which they should. But we ourselves also have a responsibility.
Yeah. We talked about transportation and all the technical issues of reliable energy and utilities in the TCI and our whole group of islands. So is reliable electricity, you think, one of the keys to unlocking more development outside of Providenciales? Let's say Grand Turk, for example. We hear most of our family islands say they seem to be forgotten or neglected. Is reliable electricity one of those factors that attracts development?
Yeah, most definitely, because developers want to know that when they come into a country, that the resource that they're depending on is reliable. But what I would also say is that our utilities have been fairly reliable in terms of development. So yes, even though we have a high cost of energy, even though that energy, the energy that we burn is the most expensive to burn, our systems are fairly reliable. And I think that any investor that wants to make Turks and Caicos the home should understand and should know that we do have systems, whether it's water, electricity, fuel at the pump, that is reliable. Now, islands, the cost of that energy, though reliable, tend to cost more on the further you go from the major metropolitan hub. And that's called Providenciales, the major metropolitan hub of the Turks and Caicos, right? And so islands like South Caicos, for instance, pays the highest in fuel charge. So therefore, they pay the highest in energy charge. So we want to see energy prices pretty much level across the Turks and Caicos Islands. And instead of them going in this direction, we need them to go in the other direction.
Right. Now we're talking about development. So do hotels consume a disproportionate share of national electricity generation?
Yes, they do, because they're larger. But a large makeup of the electricity use is made up by residential customers. Now, in terms of that disproportion, what we have said time and time again, and you would hear the theme from a regulatory perspective, equal playing field. When we talk about large developments and large developers that come into the country to develop, they also need to pay their fair share for energy costs. And it's not energy costs in terms of their energy bill, which means is that if there is a extension that needs to go to their property, if there are poles and wires and transformers that they need to go to their property, or if there's an upgrade of a specific line, those developers have to pay for that cost to be able, or they should, let me say that, they ought to pay for that cost for their development. Because, and oftentimes, sometimes what we see is the developer don't pay the full cost. And if the developer doesn't pay the full cost, the cost is spread across the entire country. So therefore, we have what we call upward pressure on utility rates and downward pressure on utility rates. And this goes for both water and electricity. I'm not singling out any entity. There has to be an equitable cost mechanism so that the developers that are coming into the country, when they call on the energy system, that any stress or any undue burden that is placed because they were not necessarily there, that they pay for the infrastructural upgrades, and that infrastructural upgrades are not felt by you, me, and the small mom and pop in South Caicos.
Yeah. So you mentioned, and fairly so, that these large hotels or developments consume more energy. Is it then also fair to ask them to become greener?
Most definitely, it is. Within reason, though, right? Because the cost mechanism or the costliness in order for them to become greener, in a lot of instances, because of the natural resources that we have, it is sometimes unfeasible for them to do so. So let's look at solar, for instance. If we were to say to large developers, if you're going to build out a large villa, a large hotel, then you need to have a component of renewable energy as a part of your bill. Yes, I think that is all for that. But I think where it sometimes get a bit tricky is when we ask them to meet a certain percentage or a certain goal. Because if they have 3, 4, 5 acres and we're asking them to use 2 acres for renewable energy, it can sometimes get a bit tricky, right?
Yeah.
So there is a balance to be met. And do I know the answer to that? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
But should there be? Yeah, there should be some form.
Yeah.
Yes.
You mentioned the renewable energy bill, but does the TCI have a comprehensive long-term energy strategy?
Yes and no.
Why?
Yes, in that a long-term energy strategy should be based on a national perspective. And what my office will do over the next year is to roll out a national energy consultation so that we will build a national energy strategy. And if you ask Pelican Energy might say, yeah, we have a national energy strategy. That is not the national energy strategy, because you cannot develop a strategy that is based on yourself and where your company wants to go. It has to be based on legislation, policy, and on an institution that can say that this is the policy, these are the regulations, and no matter who you are, whether you are Pelican Energy, whether you are a developer, whether you're a small condo owner, whether you're a small home owner, that this is the energy strategy that you need to adhere to, and it has to be based in policy. And that's where we need to be, not one entity or one person saying this is our energy strategy and this is where we want to go. No, there has to be national consultation. There has to be national development. There has to be national rules, regulations. That's the no part. The yes part is we're getting there with the renewable energy bill. We're getting there with multi-sector regulatory and how we regulate these industries. So whereas we do not have a full comprehensive one in place, we are getting towards one.
Yeah.
And we're building towards one with the understanding that it's not going to happen overnight.
Yeah. Now tell us a little bit about you and your department. So what exactly does the Energy and Utilities Commission regulate?
So our goal is to regulate oil and gas, water, and energy within the Turks and Caicos Islands, within our country. And a part of what we do is if there are regulatory challenges, if there are complaints, if there are concerns from consumers or from the regulator, we act as that person to say, okay, this is what, under the current laws that we have, right? With the understanding that it's not industry best practice, so that we can only operate within the mandate that we've been given.
Right.
And that mandate that we've been given is within the fuel ordinance, is within the electricity ordinance and is within the water and sewage ordinance.
Okay.
So we act as that person, that middleman, that entity that says to consumers, here are your rights. Here are what you are afforded to. And if you have a concern, here is the avenues that you can go.
Okay.
Another avenue is to develop rules and regulations for the industry and to provide cabinet with information, to provide the legislator with information, and that's what we're doing in the various rules and policies that we hope to change in the very near future. And also a part of our rule is, our mandate is also to just to listen to the community, understand the plight of the complaints, and to, if there are challenges from a utility perspective, a utility to say, here's our challenge, here's what we need to see, and we need to understand how we can better serve both entities.
Yeah, okay. So we're about to approach the hurricane season, and hurricane resilience is critical. How prepared is our utility infrastructure for major storms?
I would say the utilities in the Turks and Caicos Islands have done a very good job in preparing the infrastructure for major hurricanes. Nothing is a better teacher than experience itself, right?
Yep.
And what we've went through with Irma and Maria has taught us some very valuable lessons. So you would see different entities upgrading their infrastructure with the understanding that no system, none, is going to be 100% foolproof or 100% resilient. But we can aim towards that. So what utilities have done, whether it's our water and sewage utility or our energy utility, is begin to roll out certain infrastructure programs, look at the lines that are, or infrastructure paths that are most at risk, looking at the main trunks, the main transmission areas, and then moving into the distribution areas. And so you would see a lot of work throughout the years that goes into upgrading that infrastructure, moving from class 3 poles to class 1 poles. And for those that don't know, the class 3 poles are the more thin, brittle poles, and the class 3 are the more thicker, more sturdier poles. So that is where we're moving towards, and also ensuring that the community understands their role as well. When there is a storm, you shouldn't be riding around. If there's a down power line, you move in the opposite direction. You treat every down power line, whether it's a storm or not, as if it's live. Do not touch it. Keep your kids away from it. Keep your vehicles away from it. So we're not where we want to be, but there are plans to move to where we should be and where we need to be.
Yeah. You mentioned Pelican Energy coming to speak directly to consumers, and they've made an approach, so we know that they are going to do that.
Oh, wonderful,
yeah,
wonderful.
They heard you and they took your advice.
Oh, man, that was quick.
But what can you and your office do to help improve public confidence in utilities and its services? Boy, you're coming with it today.
I think the public should know that, I hear this in certain places that I go, that, oh, they're robbing us, or they're taking away. Yes, energy prices are high, but I want to assure the public that no one is doing anything nefarious. Our utilities are operating under the confines in which they are given, which is the current legislation. Is it industry best practice? No. Is it the best rules and regulations? No. Should we upgrade those rules and regulations? Absolutely, which we are working towards. But does it mean that any one particular entity is doing anything nefarious? They are not. And it is our job to ensure that they are not. And we are working and doing the checks and balances to ensure that those industries are behaving in a way and in a manner which they have agreed to, though it's based on legislation from 1986 and policy agreements from 1986. Now, until we upgrade those policies, my hands are essentially tied. Until we upgrade those legislations, my hands are tied. Until we upgrade where we should be to international regulatory best practices, there is very little that this office can do.
Ms. Dava, I want you to look at your camera, and I want you to speak to those residents who are frustrated every month when they open their electricity bill. And then for those folks in Grand Turk who have had huge water bills, I want you to speak to that frustrated resident right now.
I wish I could. But I guess the one thing I would say is, yes, there are some things that you feel that are not happening that could be happening. I would also say that there are some things that we can do as well from an efficiency perspective. And I'm not putting it back on the consumer, but I'm also saying that, again, and I've said it throughout this cast, is that there are things that the government can be doing more. There are things that my office can be doing more. But there are also some things that me, as a consumer, can do more to ensure that my water bill isn't as high as it is. And my water bill is high. My energy bill isn't as high as it is. My kids are helping with that. And that we can all work together. And I would say that also, like, we can speak against these things without thinking that there is something nefarious that is going on. That because as a part of my goal, my mandate is to ensure that there is an equal and fair opportunity, fair playing field for every person in this country to be able to enjoy the renewable energy, ensure that they have affordable energy within the community. Are we where we need to be? By far, no. Are we putting in regulations, suggesting policies to cabinet, and ensuring and pushing legislation? Most certainly. And I would say, speak to, and politicians don't like to hear this, but again, in my independent role, speak to your politicians. Ask them, where are we at with the renewable energy bill? Speak to your representative from ED7, ED9, ED1. Where are we at with the multi-sector regulations? Where are we at with ensuring that we are not dependent on the market? Ask them, where are we with these things, so that they can begin to also ensure that your voices are heard, because your voice has to be heard.
And we're almost out of time, but finally, Commissioner, what gives you optimism about the future of energy in the Turks and Caicos?
I have been taught that as long as there's life, there's hope. And what I've learned over the last week, that even though there's hope, hope is not a strategy. There has to be determination. So my determination, I would tell you, like, my determination gets me into many problems in many spheres. And this conversation alone may get me into some challenges, but that's okay. I see these as opportunities because, again, I say to folks, my role is not to be at the behest of the utility. My role is not to be at the behest of the government. My role is not to be at the behest of the people, because I sit in a role that should be equal and fair to all. And I have a determination that I want to see these islands to be more affordable. The cost of energy in these islands are too high. And I have a determination through pushing, ensuring that Cabinet is briefed on industry best practice, is briefed on international best practice, to ensure that when they make a decision, the decisions are made in the best interest of all. And when it is not, they hear my voice, and they hear it loud and clear. When there are utilities that are not operating the way they should, those utilities hear my voice, and sometimes it becomes loud and overbearing, and I become overbearing. But again, I will not stop fighting until there is an equal, fair opportunity for all citizens in the Turks and Caicos Islands. And I aspire to get there. There are challenges. There are challenges. I would not sit here and be oblivious to the fact that we have a great monumentalness, a great monument before us. But I was taught in Sunday school, in the Church of God of Prophecy, that if we all work together, we will get the job done.
And there you have it, listeners, viewers. So today's discussion reminds us that the path forward will require innovation, investment, difficult decisions,
Yes.
and long-term planning. Commissioner Delano Arthur, thank you for joining us on First Edition and helping to shed some light on the most important issues facing the Turks and Caicos Islands in terms of energy and utilities. It has been an awesome conversation. I hope it creates opportunities rather than challenges for you. And please come back.
Yes, most definitely. Thank you for having me, and thank you, Turks and Caicos.
This has been First Edition. We'll see you next week.